being struck while standing or falling. Something with a lot of velocity went through there and flared that open.
I do believe that conspiracy theorists are going to have a field day with this. They're going to make the Warren Commission look like a walk in the park. And that's unfortunate, not only for the members of Congress who are trying to work on this issue, but for all the families out there that are listening very carefully to what we're talking about today, what these experts are saying. And I just think there's so much that has been lost in these last 6 months that we can never go back and retrieve. And it's not only unfortunate, it's borderline criminal. Yeah. And I'll yield back with that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Active participation. And I want to clear up something for the record, Dr. Corley, because you said, I want to make sure I understand it correctly, that shortly after September 11, you signed a confidentiality agreement. You said you hadn't signed one like that before. Which confidentiality agreement were you referring to? The one from the Port Authority or the one from FEMA? Or both? Referring to the one from the Port Authority or the one from FEMA? Or both?
I was referring to the one from the Port Authority.
So that's the SOP, as Mr. Shea had indicated, the type of agreement you signed with FEMA.
Yes, I think that that agreement, that standard agreement, yeah. I had signed.
I mean, it didn't sound out of line when he mentioned that to me. So, but I want to make sure the record was clear. I'm not suggesting any sinister plots, and as Mr. Crowley has indicated, the tabloid press is going to have a field day with this. We're not interested in providing fodder for them. Dr. Corley, you also mentioned in your testimony, I was amazed by this, that you had some problems getting videotapes from news organizations. Why would they have any problem with giving you videotapes?
Yes, we did have some problems. My understanding is that the tape that had not been played on the networks was not available to us. Anything that had been played, eventually we were able to get access to.
But the one that wasn't played, I mean, you had a reason for requesting it.
Yes, we did.
This is a very important review and investigation. And why wouldn't they? I understand that the networks didn't have some of the tapes on television for all to see because they felt it was not appropriate. Is that your understanding?
There very likely was tape like that also that they did not feel was appropriate, but my understanding was that that had not been used yet was not available to us, and
so what you're suggesting to me that our TV networks were not cooperative in something critically important to the nation.
I would say I felt that they were cooperative in many, many ways, and they did provide us with lots and lots of material.
And I applaud them for that. That's wonderful, and I think they should as a civic responsibility. But are they going to be selective in what they provide you? Are you going to have a selective investigation, review, and recommendations? I mean, I would think they'd want to be complete. Is there some liability questions, or when you asked for something and they didn't give it to you, what was the reason they gave you for not giving it to you?
I really did not personally hear those reasons. I simply was told that we would only get the tapes that we got. Which
was a request in writing, or was it verbal?
It certainly was verbal, and to the best of my knowledge, it was also in writing.
Would you share for the committee, for the record, a copy of the written request and also a copy of the written response?
We can find that information, yes.
All right.
And would be some of the parts of the plane embedded in the cars and in places in which you just wouldn't expect. A part of the fins off the turbine or for one of the engines was actually found embedded into one of the engine blocks of one of the cars. But I think the most unique thing about this investigation has just been the unbelievable damage, the levels of heat in which, in certain instances, firearms were found in some of the vehicles that had completely melted down, and the temperatures that we were told were in the area of 3,000 to 4,000 degrees, that they melted a steel revolver down into a blob of metal again. these were some of the things. An engine block that was aluminum, and its pistons were cast iron, and other parts of the engine were steel, and the aluminum had actually melted around the steel and the iron and had dripped off like teardrops coming from the parts of the car. Fronts of automobiles that just melted away from the extreme heat, and yet the rest of the automobile was otherwise intact. And these steel automobiles that give people such belief in being secure and well made while they're driving 70 miles an hour on a highway are found to be little piles of tin cans after they've been struck by the immensity of this attack.
Thank you, Mr.
People don't understand. There may be more. Any one of these fucking buildings could blow up. This ain't done yet.
Nothing no more worse than this. You're in the building trying to help people, and it's exploding on the inside the building. So I don't think it can get any worse than this.
Third explosion's also, right?
We were in the building for the third one. It collapsed. I was on this drive here for the other one.
Just trying to find anybody.
Now, how did you get hurt, James?
I was, my assignment with Latitude 4, the company I'm assigned to, we were supposed to go into building number 2, the South Tower, and make our way into Tower number 1, the North Tower. And we were caught in the collapse in the lobby of Tower number 2, the South Tower.
That's when the South Tower cracked. It started to rain down on us, hitting my head, and then just knocked me into the building and fell onto my legs and crushed my foot, knocked me out of my shoes.
Forensics expert recalls September 11. I just saw the top of it explode, he said. My first reaction was that it was a time-release bomb. I must have looked up too long, because everyone around me was running. He felt small pieces of concrete strike his body and was hurled through a window, which probably saved his life. The force knocked him out of his shoes. If I landed outside, I would have been killed, he said. WHE, and I opened my eyes. It was pitch black. That's what scared me.
It would create violent vibration and create a loud boom within the building. So it was boom, 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 and that kept, as it got closer, it got louder and louder. We just covered up and hoped for the best.
In the streets below the World Trade Center,
every floor that hit fell in a pancake fashion. One floor would hit the other floor, and every time that happened, there was just tremendous boom and vibration.
I almost made it back to the stairway, and that's when the collapse of my building started. And yeah, we kept waiting for the big beam or the big piece of concrete to come and get us, and for us it didn't come. It wasn't an office floor, it was a mechanical equipment room floor. I couldn't find a chair. And I was way on the other side of the building, and something just told me, says, you know what, this isn't working out. We're just gonna have to drag her down the stairs. So I start running back to the stairway, and I get about 3 feet away from the stairway door, and the collapse starts, with us still inside.
And what did you, when you say the collapse started, what were you experiencing at that point?
The floor started moving like it was ripples on a lake, and then started hearing and feeling tremendous vibration as the floors were hitting each other. And
it was unmistakable. You knew the building was collapsing.
Definitely, it was our building was collapsing. Yeah. And finally got the stairway door open, and dove for the stairway. And one of my guys was waiting for me on the stairway, Matt Komorowski, and the collapse created a strong wind. It was all the air in the building was being compressed, and that wind blew him down 2 flights of stairs. It picked him up, and he injured his ribs in the process. But this wind was also filled with debris, and we're getting whacked with debris as the building is starting to collapse further and further down. And at first it was distant, and it got louder, and the vibration was more violent the closer it got. And it was also this eerie sound of twisting steel all around. I still remember the sound of steel, these massive steel beams that are roughly 5 feet deep, twisting around us like they were little twist ties off a loaf of bread. I'll never forget it.
The building started collapsing.
Just before I made it back to the stairway on the 4th floor, that's when the collapse of the North Tower started.
So were you separated from the other men?
Matt Komorowski was waiting for me on the landing, and everybody else was on the next flight of stairs going down before they got to the half landing. The vibration was so violent that they all fell to the ground. Matt Komorowski was actually picked up by the air currents that were being created from the compression of air inside the building with the collapse coming down, and he actually got thrown down about two and a half flights of stairs. So I dove for the stairway, and I just covered up as best I could.
So you made it into the stairway?
I made it into the stairway, made it to the landing of the floor.
Just describe what you experienced as the tower collapsed on top of you.
Well, it started out, the floor started to move. And since the collapse started about 1,300 feet away, the sound was off in the distance, and it got louder as it got closer. And you could hear the floors hitting the other floors, and every time that happened, it created tremendous vibration in the stairway. And you could also hear the sound of twisting steel all around you. And it got louder as the collapse got closer. And it would create violent vibration and create a loud boom within the building. So it was boom, 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 and that kept, as it got closer, it got louder.
But today, over 1,100 victims are still missing. Lost without a trace.
By now, I expected to get some kind of remains, but you just kind of have to accept that you don't have any.
I don't have any physical remains at all. No grave to go to.
As the
strange sounds, and the building starts imploding. One floor after one. Tremendous boom. And all that smoke that was in the air and the cross street, as the building imploded, it created a vacuum. And it starts sucking the smoke from the cross streets and in the air towards the core. Like they're bombing the financial area. I gotta go save my wife. And I can't rationalize it in my head. And the first time in my life I became angry. I mean,